An alternative theory was the world's greatest banker, J.P. Morgan, behind the sinking of the Titanic in 1912. In 1912, the Titanic did not sink as official history teaches you. American billionaire J.P. Morgan had a first-class ticket on the Titanic, but he canceled everything at the last minute. His biggest financial rivals stayed on board and never returned. Here is the conspiracy theory about the unsinkable ship. On April 14, 1912, the Titanic hit an iceberg and sank, killing more than 1,500 people. A tragic accident, a maritime disaster. But some researchers claim that the Titanic did not sink by accident, but was sunk intentionally. And who was the mastermind? None other than banking mogul J.P. Morgan. The theory suggests that Morgan, the most powerful financier of his time, deliberately orchestrated the disaster in order to gain financial advantage. The Titanic had a nearly identical sister ship, the Olympic. A year before the disaster, the Olympic was involved in a serious collision with the Royal Navy cruiser HMS Hawke. She was badly damaged and declared uninsurable. But what if the owner of the Titanic and the Olympic, the White Star Line, switched ships to commit the biggest insurance fraud in history? The plan was to rename the damaged Olympic the Titanic, send it out to sea, sink it in a way that would make it look like an accident, and then collect the insurance money. J.P. Morgan was the driving force behind the White Star Line. At the time, he was consolidating his control over the American financial system by creating the Federal Reserve. Three of his biggest opponents were aboard the Titanic: Benjamin Guggenheim, Isidor Straus, and John Jacob Astor IV. All three opposed Morgan's plans for the Federal Reserve. None of them survived the sinking of the Titanic. Although J.P. Morgan had a first-class ticket on the Titanic, he canceled his trip at the last minute. In 1985, researchers discovered the wreck of the Titanic. But when they examined the hull, they found something shocking. The metal plate had been bent outward. This suggests an explosion inside the ship, not just an impact with an iceberg. What caused it? Some argue that a fire in the coal hold just before the Titanic set sail. If true, the ship was already doomed before it hit the iceberg. No thorough investigation was ever conducted. No one was ever held accountable. The U.S. government and British authorities closed the case. Meanwhile, J.P. Morgan was instrumental in the creation of the Federal Reserve the very next year, securing his place as the most powerful banker in history. This is despite the fact that he died a few months before the Federal Reserve was founded. But no one can prove that the Titanic was deliberately sunk. But here's what we do know. J.P. Morgan controlled the White Star Line, the company that owned the Titanic. Morgan canceled his trip at the last minute. Three of his biggest rivals died on board. There are serious discrepancies in the construction, sinking, and insurance of the Titanic.